listening to program notes for the Florida Orchestra's Huff Family Foundation Masterworks series. In this episode, I will be talking about Ludwig van Beethoven's Choral Fantasy for Piano, Chorus, and Orchestra Opus 80, and Leonard Bernstein's Symphony No. 3, Kaddish, so you can dive deeper into the music anytime, anywhere. These audio program notes are authored by Kurt Loft, a local writer who has written about the arts in the Tampa Bay area for more than 40 years. You can find his full transcriptions at floridaorchestra.org. All right, let's dive in. Ludwig van Beethoven, 1770 to 1827. Choral Fantasy for Piano, Chorus, and Orchestra, Opus 80. Performance duration, approximately 18 minutes. What to listen for in this piece. We all know the famous Ode to Joy theme of Beethoven's Ninth Symphony, but this is where, years before, it began to take shape. Throughout history, composers have been known to borrow from themselves, taking a tune from a decade or two earlier and weaving it into something new. Bach did this all the time, in part because of the pressure of church deadlines. Others simply wanted to mold a youthful idea into a more mature one. In the case of Beethoven, his crowning masterpiece, the Ninth Symphony, wasn't born in situ. He based its most famous section on a work from nearly 15 years earlier, the Choral Fantasy, which in turn took life from an old song of Beethoven's called Gegenliebe, Against Love. The composer said he forged the finale of his last symphony from the style of my fantasy, but on a far grander scale, with vocal solos and choruses, based on the words of Schiller's immortal song, An die Freude. It came to life in a concert at Vienna's Theater an der Wien on December 22, 1808, a 4-hour extravaganza in a freezing hall that featured some of music's most beloved masterpieces. The all-Beethoven marathon included the premieres of both the 5th and 6th symphonies, the 4th piano concerto, excerpts from the Mass in C, the concert aria A Perfido, and the freshly composed and poorly rehearsed Choral Fantasy for Piano, Chorus, and Orchestra. Not only was Beethoven the guest of honor at his own fundraiser, he sat at the piano, his last public appearance as a soloist before deafness made performing impossible. Beethoven composed the fantasy in the week before the concert, saying he needed a brilliant finale. Inadequate rehearsal of the hastily written work led to snags, and the musicians were forced to stop and restart the performance. Regardless, it must have been quite a night. The fantasy moves from an adagio to an allegro without a break. It opens with an extended 26-bar introduction for solo piano, designed to show off the composer's improvisational skills. After a series of major-minor modulations, the strings and horns enter the fray. Then, as if awakened from a dream, the piano begins to etch out ideas that predate the famed Ode to Joy theme. The orchestra toys with the tune through variations before unleashing it again, this time with majestic assurance. The piano weaves in and out, almost extemporaneously, teasing us with new ideas, but always reminding us of the famous tune. A fusillade of horns announces it again before voices enter piecemeal, first in small ensemble, then in full chorus. The fantasy closes in a rapturous presto of voices, orchestra, and keyboard. Leonard Bernstein, 1918-90. Symphony No. 3, Kaddish, text by Samuel Pisar. Performance duration, approximately 39 minutes. What to listen for in this piece. A composer of post-romantic orchestral works and Broadway musicals, Bernstein wrote in a different style for the Kaddish Symphony.
My own Kaddish.
In the last of his 3 symphonies, Leonard Bernstein created a work of dualism, a blend of abstract orchestral music and vocal theater, of tonality and atonality, of tension and release. This sprawling creation for speaker, soprano, chorus, and orchestra is essentially a heated dialogue between humankind and God, a confrontation over breach of faith and the earthly vulgarities allowed by a higher power. The opening words of the original score, later revised, set the tone of conflict. "Oh, my Father, ancient, hallowed, lonely, disappointed Father, betrayed and rejected, ruler of the universe, angry, wrinkled old majesty." The world premiere of Kaddish took place December 10, 1963, just weeks after the assassination of President John F. Kennedy, and Bernstein suddenly found the symphony to be even more relevant, even ironic. Where the president stressed the ideals of learning and reason, humankind too often acted out of ignorance and hatred. The Kaddish took on new meaning, and Bernstein dedicated it to the beloved memory of Kennedy. Kaddish, sanctification, is a prayer of mourning spoken by Jews at the graveside and in temples, but it never mentions death itself. Each of its three movements, performed without pause, embraces an emotional state, troubled, peaceful, and exultant. The first, invocation, describes the desire to pray, followed by the speaker questioning how God could allow so much disorder on earth, especially when he has the power to change it. The second section, Din Torah, escalates the confrontation by asking, "Are you listening, Father? Where is faith now, yours or mine?" The soprano voice softens the fury with a lullaby. The final movement, Scared So, is in the form of a dream in which humankind, rather than God, is in control. In the end, both will suffer and recreate each other. The music concludes not on a positive or triumphal note, but with an uncomfortable dissonance. The symphony has evolved since its first performance, with revisions to the music and text. The words for the Florida Orchestra's production were written by Samuel Pisar, describing his experience in concentration camps during the Holocaust, where most of his family died. Pisar, who passed in 2015, dedicated his revision to the memory of Leonard Bernstein, a beloved friend. Although Bernstein struggled with the text and music for Kaddish, its message can be clearly interpreted as a testament on the power and loss of faith. Marin Alsop, the American conductor and Bernstein protege, believes this and other works by the composer suggests conflicts on both a personal and global scale. The question of faith is woven through every Bernstein piece, even when there is no obvious religious component, she notes on her website. For Bernstein, the crisis of the 20th century was a crisis of faith. What can we believe in when mankind has the desire and capability to destroy itself? He conveys this crisis musically by pitting atonality against tonality. For Bernstein, atonality captured the musical end of civilization. Thank you for listening to Sound Waves with the Florida Orchestra. Enjoy the concert.